what would be perhaps similar to a workshop, just note that. So except basically it's really to receive information and hear what's been happening over the last few months and what a lot of the departments are working on over the next few months as well. So a very warm welcome, councillors and staff, to members of the public who may be watching this on the live stream. So with that, we'll hand over to Mr. Hope, who's going to start us off, I think, with no, we're going to what do you think of Mr. Rendell? So Josh, if you want to start us off on the assets group update, thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker Coacher. For the sake of time, I'm happy to take the report as read and just take any questions.
Okay. So if we can try and follow some semblance of order and work our way through the different departments. So has anyone got anything on the property update? Councillor Linwood.
I don't actually know if it comes under property. Would aquatic centre come under property? Recreation. I'll wait till recreation then.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah. Thank you, Mick. It's a nice jacket, Josh. Just apropos of renovation of Holmes Walk on page 7, it just reminded me that some time ago it looked as though we'd had a seaweed processing venture in the sheds. And it just occurred to me to ask, does anyone know what's happened to that, or are we actively trying to find tenants and uses for those sheds in addition to the other work that's been done on the wharf?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Hopkins. With respect to previous businesses that may have operated from those sheds, I can't really make comment. However, we are looking to tenant those sheds in due course, which is doing some necessary maintenance works at the moment to make them tenantable.
That particular proposal was several years ago, yeah. And I think it's certainly gone. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Halaleli.
Thank you through the chair. Just a question about community housing. Are you able to give us an update around the healthy homes refurbishments that were happening? Yeah.
We've got Laurie online who may be able to answer that. We'll go. Laurie, can you respond to that?
Good morning. Yes.
Good morning.
Yes. Through the chair. Are you talking about the refurbishments at Palmerston specifically? Or just
in general, just the upgrading for healthy home requirements?
Yeah, we're on track with healthy homes. We're at a pretty high level of around, I think, about 90%. There was an extension on the time frame, but we're sort of just trucking along with that. We're not sort of putting anything off. So I think we've only got like the likes of one heat pump that we've still got to install, but we're doing well on track with that.
What is the time frame that's
I think they extended it out another 12 months to next year. It's sort of towards the end of next year. I can confirm that though with Suzanne and my team.
Okay, and how much of this can happen with tenants in each home, or do you wait for vacancies?
Yeah, we sort of we can address anything that we need to, but most of our units are up to spec. We get the odd heat pump that needs replacement, which we can address while they're there. We offer them some heating options if it's going to take a few days, especially with the winter.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. Go back to Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, on page 9, risks and opportunities. There were reports of an incident concerning aircraft at Yomaru Airport. Fortunately, the incident was a near miss. From whom did the reports come?
The reports of the incidents came through. There were two incidents that occurred. One came through from the health and safety representative of the company who had the near miss, and I believe the other one came through from CAA, who requested recordings of the flights so that they could undertake an investigation.
When did these incidents occur?
sorry, yep.
Yeah.
Waiting for the camera to come around. There were 2 incidences within the space of a week. I believe they occurred towards the end of May.
Yes, yes, that's right, Josh.
Thanks, Laurie. Okay, anything else?
Supplementary, has the CAA investigation concluded?
Not at this stage. We're waiting to hear back from them. We've given them all the audio recordings, as Josh mentioned, so we're just waiting to hear back.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on property? Okay, move on to Parks and Rec, Councillor Linwood.
Thank you. It's just about the aquatic centre. At the last council activity update, you kind of gave us an update on the swimming lessons that we'd raised money for, and I was just wondering how you got on with that and who you reached out to, and if you can tell me how many spots there are to fill. And then following on from that, I think it goes into recruitment, but I'll let you answer that first.
Lindsay Hyde is online. So Lindsay, are you able to answer that one?
Yeah, there's a few strands there, so thank you, Councillor Linwood. And I probably need to just give an update, I think, to all councillors on this, because I do have some information. I'm just going to start searching my email for it. I believe that we have undertaken some lessons this term, and I have a funny feeling there's 6, but I think for most of it we're going to be looking at term 3 to getting stuff through. So I would like to at least get accurate information through to all of the teams. So yeah, yeah, at this stage I can't really give you any more information, but yeah, it definitely was a well supported initiative, and I know the aquatic centre manager has been working with I think Sport Waitaki Recreation Centre, and I believe it may have been the Pacifica community, but don't hold me to ransom on that one.
Can I ask my second question?
Yeah.
Just about recruitment. Why do you think you're having a hard time finding staff? Do you think it could be a pay issue, or is there anything else?
Through the chair, the whole industry, the aquatic centre industry through New Zealand is experiencing issues. The supervisor's role is one that we thought we'd probably get reasonable success in early on. The recent advertisement did get a suitable candidate. However, they decided that they wanted to go on to other pastures. And determined that it wasn't suitable for them to sort of fulfill the role in a short period of time. So as a result, they made a approach, they gave us that sort of information. So there is some possibly some pay issues. We know that in the wider employment sector, pay rates are going up, and it's something we are looking at addressing. However, we've got to just be mindful of what the rest of the industry is doing across the country. Yeah, so it will make it a challenge, and even lifeguards through the country are as rare as hen's teeth, but we are doing a recruitment program for lifeguards through the schools, and we will be hoping that we will have actually suitable numbers for over that Christmas break as our current crew move on through the schooling system, and we'll be looking at university options moving ahead. So yeah, we do need to be mindful of that space as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cowles and then the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kircher. Trial is occurring, and I notice you're monitoring to ensure the works deliver the intended outcomes. I know that we're looking at resilience around the Ulster Ocean. Have you got a few examples or some areas that we're working on there to make the trail more resilient? Are there particular areas or particular projects that we're doing as part of this repair works to enhance the trail?
Through the chair, some examples of resilience works on the Alps Ocean Trail at the Onomatopoeia River, where we had the Braid River system scoured out the track, I think definitely 2 times. So we are looking and installing a bridge. I've got resource consent to install a bridge over that river, and so we'll have a small section of path in between an existing bridge and the new bridge, and realigning the track so at least it goes alongside the river system. There are areas that we're looking at washovers, and we're also installing improving drainage in a variety of spots through the trail from Ohau through Tamburay right through to Enfield. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's being done in that space, and it's just a matter of the contractors working through what they can and getting this major work done whilst we've got good conditions at the moment anyway.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Halaleli. You okay? No. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Waitaki Event Centre, can we just get a bit of an update there? We seem to be just taking longer and longer and longer to make a decision.
Mr. Rendell.
Tenders are currently being assessed for Waitaki Event Centre. So we went out for a design and construct tender. We've had 3 submissions back. They're currently being assessed by the panel. Once we have a preferred supplier, that'll be coming back to council through the project board for endorsement. Sorry, further to that, we are still short on funding for the project. Obviously, the trust and council has consulted with the community on potentially council putting further funds towards the project, but we are still hoping for some additional external funds. So if anyone's got pockets that are a bit full, feel free to donate.
Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Rendell. The reason I asked is I would imagine that there's more chance of us securing funding when we say it's definitely on or conversely off.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of work that's been going on in the background to get the plans to where they are and to get the costings. So, you know, that's been a major hurdle, is confirmation on what the cost is. Yeah, we know what the figure is that's needed, and basically, yeah, so the chicken and egg. Yeah, we can't say it's definitely happening until we've got the money, and we, you know, if we can't get the money until we say it's definitely happening. That's a challenge for us because the council will be expected to come up with any shortfall, and it's not a position we want to be in. We need to, we'll be asking, we will be asked to make a call on any extra funding that we might make. That decision is proposed to be next Tuesday, but there's still information that we need from the Event Centre Trust around their ability to fundraise further. They've still got a couple of major funders to come in. So yeah, it is a bit of chicken and egg. At some point we're going to need to make that leap of faith. Any other questions? A quick one from me. There's a reference to the monitoring and maintenance contract performance for the Parks and Reserves maintenance. There's 25 random audits done across the district each month. I'd just like to know a bit more about what that entails. Perhaps Lindsay, if you can respond to that one.
Yep, through the chair. And if I get a chance, I'd like to go back to Councillor Linwood's question about the aquatic centre. I've got some bit more information I can share with the crew. As in regards to the monitoring of the contract, from our team, we undertake 25 random audits. So we have listed in a spreadsheet, we've got a random, we've got all areas listed, and we have a random area generation tool, and it spits out the 25 areas that our team audits. It will look at, so just in particular, say Jones Park was picked up, so our guys would go and would audit the requirements from the contract, measure the contract specifications against the delivery. So for there is bidding, so we're making sure the criteria that the criteria for the annual plants are being met. So as in weed density, presentation, dead heading, any sort of maintenance required. For lawns, we'll be looking at, it's a high profile lawn, so looking at the grass is cut to the height specifications. Is there any weeds in the lawn? Is there any diseases that we need to, that need to be addressed as part of the maintenance? For gardens, pest and disease control, pruning, weed control in the garden. It would be some of the things we'd look at there. Hard surfaces, make sure the hard surfaces are all clean. And in that particular area, we do have roses as well, so rose bed maintenance, and litter bin, litter collection. So making sure the litter bins are emptied at the required frequency and there's no immediate litter that's on the ground. Our team would also, if the work is being undertaken while they're undertaking the auditing, we'll actually, just make sure that, like, especially for loose litter in the ground, that it is picked up and it's not necessarily mowed over. So there's, some monitoring we can do while the work is being undertaken. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Halalili.
Just a quick question through the chair. Page 10, New Zealand cycle trails, they did an audit. Are you able to share some of the key themes from that, if it's helpful for us to have an understanding of?
Oh, that's a goodie. Through the chair, yeah, the New Zealand cycle trail audit, there was a group of people that assessed all the trails through New Zealand. And so when they come down and do the observation, that they, looked at trail surface, safety issues, how structures measured against what our expectations were. So like handrails, approaches, drainage, and that sort of stuff. They also looked at our health and safety systems, and also asked for a review of the incidents that we've had logged on the trail. I think in the last couple of years we might have provided that information. So it was looking at our systems and actually the assets on the ground. What we did find, and we've gone back to them and saying, well, we've addressed a lot of the systemic, the systems issues, and some of that was just minor, as in, just clarifying roles and responsibilities, incident reporting, and just making sure we're accurate in what we're presenting. But for the trail itself, then we did go back to NZCT and made comment about that some of the structures where they where they said that there was failures and improvements need to be made. We said, well, these were built to the code of the day, so they do meet current, what the specifications were. However, when we'd go through and replacing them, then we'd bring them up to what the current code would be, and they'd be required through the building, any building permits that we'd required to submit. My understanding is that their approach is to hopefully that by doing an assessment across all the trails, we actually provide possibly more central government funding for trail improvements moving forward, because they are on the understanding that the trails are kind of like the surface is coming to the end of their natural life. So making sure there's sufficient funding available moving ahead to make sure that the cycle trail network across New Zealand is up to a satisfactory standard.
Thank you. And your response regarding the aquatic centre?
Yeah, I'll just read the email that I received from the aquatic centre manager. It said, Altruza approached the schools for nominations and fun lessons for children, and we did not want to step on their toes, so they've been supporting us with this initiative from when Leah was there about 12 years ago. Apart from going out to groups, we'll put out a nomination form on our website and advertise it so that everyone gets the opportunity to apply. There will be criteria with the applications, as from experience we've found that families that have lessons paid for are also the ones that don't bother turning up when it's inconvenient. We're working through that process now, as we want to start in term 2, which is normally a quieter term. We're going to go out and reach to businesses again, so we continue this throughout the year. Where did I see? I did see in an email that we have got, I think, 5 or 6 in current programs. So we will, I will get a further update from our aquatic centre manager, so that everyone's aware of what those timings are.
Thank you very much. Okay, if we move on to roading. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kircher. Through you, just page 11, that very first, you okay, Josh?
Yeah, sorry.
That very first paragraph, transport choices. The first stage of activity is nearing completion, preliminary. I'm sorry, I'm scratching my head thinking, what activity, what preliminary designs, et cetera, et cetera. The paragraph, to my mind, doesn't explain enough about what we're actually talking about. So can you amplify it a wee bit for me,
This
please?
is the $5.2 million we've been awarded by the government.
Oh, is this the
I can fully explain. You've asked the question, so I'll fully explain. So it's basically the work to help get vehicles off roads and help get, particularly for us, school kids onto bikes and walking. So there's going to be a report coming to council next week, which updates the work that's been going on in this particular area. So there'll be a lot more information at that point. So with that, Josh, did you have anything you have with that? Yeah.
So just to clarify then, that what that paragraph talks about is that proposal, amongst other things, to rejig intersections with traffic lights and so on Thames Street and the like, which I think is something we've had presented to us at the moment. Is that correct?
Yes, yep. That program of work's looking at a number of intersections as well as our walking and cycling routes and how we can make those safer and more desirable for people to use. We have been working with Wakakatahi because obviously they are highways, so those designs do need to be approved by them as well as the Transport Choices team to come up with some preliminary designs, which we'll be hopefully bringing to council next week for endorsement. Granted that we don't yet have the designs in final form to be presented and hopefully getting them today.
Supplementary question, if I may, Mayor Kircher. On the next page, again, the top paragraph, work on the full speed management plan will commence shortly. The full plan will consider safe and appropriate speeds for the entire district, not just school zones. And yet, didn't the government in March actually pull back on pulling back speed limits and the like and say that they were only going to impose speed limits on the 10% of the state highway network that was most accident prone or had entire district, when arguably, given the current government's current policy position, it's not necessary?
Given the setting of speed limits review change, we need to look at putting together a full speed plan for the Waitaki district because it's no longer covered within bylaws. We've obviously done the interim speed management for the rest of the district as well. Now, obviously, there's yes, you're right. They have changed their stance on mandating roads for certain speeds at this point in time. However, they are encouraging people to be looking at speeds in certain zones to enable more safe access.
And just supplementary to that, is this something they're requiring us to do, or is this the regular they're requiring us? How much money are they giving us to do this? You know?
I believe that. So obviously we get funding for our program. So for our staff, there's an allocation of funding from Wakakatahi towards our staff and their planning time. So there's funding in that space. And then obviously any implementation will also attract the 57% funding that we usually receive.
So yeah, disappointing they're not giving us 100% given that we've got our own regular review of speed limits, but that's just the way it goes. Spending our money on things that being driven by them rather than actually fixing roads that we would like to do. Councillor Cowles. Oh no, sorry, Councillor Percival. I knew it was someone over that way.
Yeah, Josh, I've had a bit of feedback from some residents in my ward that response times to CRMs have been slower now than they were with the previous contractor. Is there any reason for their concerns?
I'm not sure, frankly. I do know that the CRM response times are within service level requirements. So as far as contract performance measures, our current contractor are performing. If the other contractor was performing over and above the service level standards, then that's, I suppose, something that they invested in. And certainly if council wishes for us to review our response time requirements, we can do so and then discuss that with the contractor. But as far as we're concerned, the contractor is performing. The other contractor, I believe, may have been attending to things a little bit faster than the current one, but it was just a resource allocation issue.
Thank you. Anything else on roading? Okay, move on to water, and just note we've got Marty Pacey online as well. Any comments, questions? Nope. I got a free ride there, Marty. So thank you. Thanks for turning up. Okay, moving now on. That finishes the assets group. So thank you very much, Josh, for that. Moving on to people and transformation, the IS group update. And who wants to start us off on this one? Mrs. Bailey.
Good morning, thank you. Great. Thank you all. Yes, this is our People and Transformation Group update. We have got a few of our managers here. I'm going to hand pretty quickly on to Chloe because I have been away in a lot of the formulation of this report. So these wonderful people beside me are going to answer all the questions. Except for a hospital pass.
Thank you. So yes, as with Mr. Rendell's report, happy to take this as read and just go through questions, but I did want to note on, let me find the right page, for the cultural facilities development project, just the news that you would have seen by email of the grant of $400,000 from lotteries, which didn't quite make the cut for the report, but important to note that.
Yep, that was very good news to get that. Okay, so if we work our way through, so any questions on the customer liaison team? No. Moving, sure I'm not missing anything. Moving through to the libraries. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, just one to Ms. Bean. On page 16, 17 and 18, you've got references to a Citizens Advice Awareness Week. And then there's also reference to a memory care for dementia patients on the next page, and finally a GPT chat for business on the page after that. One thing that is lacking is the numbers of people who took part, and I would have thought it would have been helpful for all of us to know that. So are you able to tell us how many people were involved in those projects or those events, please?
Through the chair, Councillor Hopkins. So the GPT chat for business, there were 33 business people who attended that session from various businesses around the Waitaki district. The memory care kits, those memory care kits are currently borrowable, so they're able to be taken out by members of the community. With the Creative Connections group, that is in a partnership with the North Otago Art Society. So originally we had 12 members of that group coming into the library on a monthly basis. People can feel free to come and go from that group as they so wish, obviously. So that's a regular thing that's now happening. So we really, in response to community need, we've focused quite heavily on providing support, books and resources to our elderly members of the community who are experiencing dementia or Alzheimer's. And with the census, I'm unable to tell you how many people attended those sessions. We didn't actually, because it was a drop-in session, so we didn't actually take numbers, but they would be in our stats overall. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, no, just following on from that, thank you for the, the opportunity for the community to come in and do their census and get that support needed. I think that was really important, and hopefully I'm hoping to get an update around mid-July, just around some more of the stats. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out for us. So thank you to the team.
Through the chair, thanks, councillor Halalana.
Thank you. Councillor Percival.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge and congratulate those involved with the heating upgrade for the efficient way they did it to come in under budget and well within the time that was extended to it. So that was pretty good job from all.
Through the chair, councillor Percival, I'd like to give a huge high five to the property team and how extraordinary they've actually been to work with. And it's been a great testament to also our businesses in the community, Waitaki Refrigeration. So I also want to acknowledge them too for the great work that they've done. It's been fantastic. We now have even and consistent temperature throughout the library.
Yeah, certainly had good feedback on the result of it. So yeah, people are enjoying the atmosphere much better. Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder, seeing how successful these programs are, do we have any plans to take them to the outskirts of the empire?
Thank you for your question through the chair, Councillor Thompson. Yes, we do, and yes, we will. It depends on community need and community response. Our plan is to get these programs up and going and well embedded, because we're testing and trialing, particularly the memory care kits, because those are new. It's essentially something quite new and different. So we're testing those before we want to make sure that it's fit for purpose for the whole district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on libraries? No? Thanks, Jenny. Moving on to the Oamaru Opera House, and we've got Francis McElhinney from representing the Opera House. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. Through the chair, just interested in the potential lease of the kitchen, noting that it includes the cafe. Does this have any impact on staff?
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Ryan, I realise that I have made a huge error in this, and it's actually not the cafe that will be leased. It's just the food services to the cafe.
And we both missed that, so apologies
Yes.
to both of us.
And I saw it, I went, this is going to cause quite some. No, so it will not be, as I said, it will be catering services and food services, but not actually leasing the cafe itself. So apologies.
Here's that one. Thank you. Anything else for the Opera House? No. Thanks very much, Francis. We now move to the Forester Gallery. I think you can probably respond to this stuff, Chloe. Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. Through you on page 20, the visitor numbers, and there's been some great exhibitions at the gallery recently, but I'm just wondering if, Chloe, you've got any explanation for or concern about that quite surprising drop in attendance figures for May. I mean, the gallery figures previous to that are all going up. They look good. The numbers are increasing. They're getting back to pre-COVID levels, and then suddenly, boom, it falls off the cliff. And I'm just wondering if there's any analysis of why that might be.
I think looking at the numbers through the chair, pre-COVID, May is often a quieter month, and I think the blue chart there for 2022 perhaps gives a slightly unfair sort of view to the figure for this May. And the reason for that is last year in May, we had the Earth Court and Stone exhibition, which had a huge uptake with our education program, when we saw a large number of secondary school students in particular engaging with that. So at this stage, I'm not concerned, but I am watching the numbers closely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just noticed on page 21, we're talking about staff and the archive team members engaging with other facilities. And the other facilities mentioned, none of them are in the Waitaki district. Are we just being good neighbours, or is there a benefit back to us from that?
Through the chair, I'd say it's probably a bit of both. We operate in the museum sector, and these are all places that have reached out to us and that we have relationships with. So with Owaka Museum, people might be familiar with the display at the Museum of the Waitaha Tāka collection or the Willits family collection. And the drawers that we previously had that stored in have been, Owaka have taken them in exchange for a donation to display a similar collection that they have. So it's really supporting the sector overall in an even smaller organisation. Waimati Archive, we've had some staff from there previously work on some contract work with us. So it was really just keeping up to date, especially with oral histories and digitisations. There's a 2025 deadline to try and get anything on magnetic media, such as tape recordings, onto digitised media. So catching up with that. And Temuka and Middlemarch reached out to us. Temuka came to visit and they wanted to see what we've been up to. They're looking at a potential redevelopment, though on a smaller scale. And Middlemarch would like some advice, and they've been talking to places in Dunedin who'd referred them to us as a smaller scale institution. We do also engage with the museums in our area, such as Kura, and people working on heritage in Palmerston as well. And it's really as people request. So if anyone wants to request our staff's assistance, they're more than welcome to contact the museum.
Thank you very much. And with that seamless segue to the museum and archive, do we have any other questions on that? Councillor Percival. Are you back on the gallery? Yep.
Okay, on page 20, you've got the projects. Can you just expand a bit on making sufficient progress, and also how much more do we need to kick this development off?
Certainly. So making sufficient progress, obviously got the sort of 4 traffic light status, and I would say we are making sufficient progress. Obviously we had the funding update. We're preparing for an application to the Regional Culture and Heritage Fund, which is due at the end of June, and we've had good engagement with the staff at the ministry about that, who have encouraged us to go forward with our application. And the Friends of the Forest also secured their $60,000, $20,000 over 3 years from the Christie Trust. And on the property team side of it, with Grant Rhodes, his work of engaging people to be further developing drawings and designs to support those applications is progressing well. I think, what was the second part of your question? Sorry, the Councillor Percival?
It was just how much more funding do we require? But going back to this mention, more plans or change of plans, does that indicate that the existing plans for this stage are not sufficient?
Through the chair, I may not have worded that ideally. It's more in the level of detail in the plans now that we've had input from specialists such as structural engineers and fire engineers to make sure that's captured in the plans that go through to the ministry. For that's the level of requirement they have if they're to invest millions of dollars in this project, which is what we'll be asking them to do. In terms of the cost, it's a little bit like the event centre chicken and egg situation that was discussed in the previous report, in that obviously until we have the funds, we can't go out for a tender and we don't know that cost. And at the same time, things obviously in the building sector are quite fluid. So we're looking to get an updated quantity survey figure to accompany the application we're sending through at the end of the month, and we'll be happy to update councillors at that point.
Thank you. Anything else there, Councillor Hopkins?
Oh, yeah, no, I think just going back to your museum and archive, I noticed some happiness that on page 21 you've got this sentence: the archive has been trialling weekend hours, 1 weekend a month, which I've long since might actually increase use and be helpful to people. So what's the response been? Has it worked from the point of view of people using it, and how are we promoting it?
Through the chair, we've been promoting it via the Oamaru Mail, through our website and through social media, and also signage in the archive itself. And when people make requests, making them aware that there is going to be that first weekend of the month. I would say the response to it so far has been relatively small, but it does take time for word of mouth about these things to get out. And it has had the additional benefit. It's happening within an existing staff member's time. So they're just having some flexibility with their work hours. And it's meant that we've had 2 staff members on site during that weekend time while the museum has been busier, including while we had the Costume and Textile Association conference on. So it's had some other benefits. In terms of archive numbers, not a substantial uptake yet.
Just quickly note that it does note on here that the project stage is now complete for the museum, and just comment on how great it's all looking, and I'm sure the usability of it for staff and members of the public is greatly increased. So yeah, well done on your project management or oversight on that one, Chloe. Do note that we've got students, the picture of them at figure 4 probably should be from Phoenix School, not Phoenix Park, which is the local dog park. We'll make sure that we differentiate between that and perhaps change that one for the record. Right. Deputy Mayor Haley, question.
Thank you. Through the chair, just on page 21, the future focuses more work on emergency preparedness. What's your thinking around that?
So yes, this has been a live discussion across the 3 curators at the Forester, the Archive and the museum, and also myself. And it started with us sort of analysing what emergencies we're most likely to face. And ironically, while attention often goes on to sort of large dramatic events, earthquakes and fires, the biggest risk to museum, gallery and archive collections is people, because we interact with them, and whether that's visitors, staff or people accessing archives. So it's really important that we prioritise those actions. And at first we're looking at making sure all our handling processes and storage processes are up to speed. We also have some members of the fire brigade visiting the museum today to familiarise themselves with the new layout. So if they have to respond to anything in there, they're making sure their site plans are up to date. So we're just really working through a series of different steps to make sure on all the different types of emergencies that can affect cultural institutions that we're up to date, especially with changes in the facilities.
Thank you. Right. If we can now move on to information technology and information management, something underlines and a lot of what we do around council. So just welcome the team from there. So any questions, Councillor Linwood?
Thank you, and through the chair. This is just in regards to the Lagoima requests that we received, noting that we have had a significant increase. I'd just be really curious to know how much time staff actually spend on these. I see it takes about 17 days for turnaround.
Through the chair. So it's a number we don't actually hold at the moment because it goes through many different departments. Internally, it is resulting in a fairly significant amount of time of one of my information management officers, advisors, where it's probably about 20 hours a week at the moment. That's not including any of the other people formulating and producing what gets responded to.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, Scott, thank you for the report. On page 27, you talk about the migration from Skype to Teams calling and how the report suggests that Spark hasn't been particularly helpful or proactive. You talk about us having to complain on multiple occasions and push to get action, and only now being assigned the same person. I'm just wondering, is it too late to say, sod it, we're not going to do it? We'll get somebody else who's actually willing to be more helpful and do things cheaper and quicker?
Through the chair. We had 2 project managers with Spark because there's the contact centre side and then there's the calling side. So we found that the contact centre, which was the first part that we did, went really smoothly. So we're already through that part. We've integrated that and that is now up and running. We've now got that same project manager that was on that space working on getting our phone system across. So that will alleviate any of those concerns. They did respond and were forthcoming with changing over that project manager for us. And to keep it short, we are well and truly too far into the path now to change.
Anything else? Yeah, okay. I think that finishes us off for that group. So thank you very much. We now, sorry, not that group, but that activity. We've got the grants and awards subcommittee update, and Mrs. Bailey.
Sure, there's not too much to say with this. The information in the report speaks for itself, so I'll take it as read and imagine that questions may come through the chair of that committee.
Yeah, one of the things I've asked is whether we can actually apply a bit more of a comms plan around grants and awards. There's a lot of good stories behind what's happening there, and council's role as an enabler and a facilitator to the community, helping the community deliver. It's all, you know, about localism and councils playing their role in that part. So just wonder, do you have any comments on that?
Certainly. That is being worked on with Carol and our comms team at the moment to look at getting these good news stories out there and getting it happening a bit more frequently as well. Because like you say, there's some wonderful stories in here, including some testimonials and pictures and things like that as well.
No, that's great. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through the chair, it'll be nice to kind of align them with our strategic priorities as well, because I think it'll be nice for the community to see the flow-on effect that the impact of these projects from small community groups has for the wider community.
Okay, anything else? Grants and awards? Okay. Sorry, just find the right page here. Okay, we now move on to finance and corporate development group update. Mr. Hope.
Thank you. As we're 10 days away from the end of the financial year, pretty much closing off one year and starting the next is pretty much the focus over the next month or so, as it's outlined in the update. So happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Linwood.
Thank you, and through the chair. Just regarding rates and rate penalties, I don't really know how to word this, but rather than issuing penalties, do we contact people to arrange payment solutions? I just understand everyone's really struggling, so issuing penalties might not necessarily be the best thing to do.
Yeah, look, we are. Yeah, people are reminded if they have arrears. So we'll send out reminders prior to the arrears penalties being put in place. So they'll be going out this month. Clearly, other obligations, there are too many to proactively contact everyone that has an unpaid balance at the end of the first instalment. So really, we do focus more on the arrears because that's a more significant penalty. And certainly anyone that contacts council, we are try to work with them as far as possible to come up with payment arrangements. And I certainly have a reasonable amount of discretion that if people do stick to payment arrangements, that we will excuse penalties. If they say put an arrangement in place, meet your obligations, then we'll go back and excuse penalties at the end of it. Yeah, it's one of those things. Basically, the Local Government Rating Act is very prescriptive, and so it says really once you resolve to put penalties in place, you do need to charge them, and then it's process of remitting them rather than not charging them. It is really the approach you need to take under the legislation.
I think just continuing on from there, it's knowing whether there's clear advice to ratepayers that if they can't make the payment or if they haven't made the payment and so on, that they can contact us and get onto a pathway to getting the penalties remitted and getting their rates paid, which is ultimately what we want to achieve out of that. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, just a couple of other questions relating to the report, but sticking with the penalties for the moment. The page 33 says references the introduction by banks of same-day processing of transactions has resulted in a higher number of accounts being charged penalties. I'm wondering if you can, I'm just trying to get my head around that, and if indeed that is something that's blindsided people, would that be grounds for, shall we say, a generic or general remission in those instances?
Yeah, that's certainly something where I read that so the banks, and I think the efforts to try and improve service to customers, they now process transactions over the weekend rather than holding those until sort of Monday morning. And that caught a number of people out in terms of charges going through, not a council charge, but another charge going through earlier than expected, therefore having an impact on the bank balance, which then when the time for rates to come out, the funds weren't there that people were expecting. We did go through and we sort of noticed it with returned direct debits. The banks are now only processing them. They used to try and process them a couple of times before they would dishonour them. Now they're only processing them once. And if it doesn't go through automatically, then they're dishonouring the transaction. So we're having quite a close look at those, contacting anyone that we've been able to identify that may have been sort of unexpectedly charged a penalty, and are working through with those people to sort of a resolution. But we will remit some penalty because agree that it's unexpected and unfair in this instance, because I don't think either changes were particularly well publicised by the banks.
No. Look, the other question, and it's probably I don't know whether it's even one for Alex or yourself, Paul, but under the Three Waters reform, the third bullet point says the council has elected to join the Canterbury West Coast entity. I was under the impression that we'd been asked by the minister to let him know what our preference was, but that the ultimate decision was still with him. So isn't it a matter of fact that we've advised him that we would like to go there, but not that the decision's been made?
The minister told us that we had the choice and we made the choice.
Oh, okay. So I thought we had. Yeah, okay. I misunderstood the decree from them in that case. Yeah, okay, fine.
Once they let us do what we wanted to do, I can understand your surprise.
I feel faint.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel like I should move across because I've got an email question in from Councillor McCone. Mr. Hope, Councillor McCone makes comment relating back to our previous discussions with NOIC, and he's asking questions about principal repayments and where they go, and then outlining where our potential internal and external debts are and whether that was sustainable going forward. Would you like me to forward that email to you so you can respond to him?
Yes, please. And I think we do have a performance audit and risk committee coming up, and I think try and provide an answer in that venue rather than this one.
Thank you. Okay,
anything else through to page, whatever we're up to, 34. Anything on corporate development? So we'll move to community development and welcome to Helen and Yvonne. So any questions on community development? Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor Catcher. Well, not a question about the survey, or a couple of questions about the survey in a moment, but I just like to congratulate Helen and the team for organising the school film event. And they showed the films in the Opera House on the 1st of June. And it was a fantastic night. And they were great little videos that had been made by students from all of the 5 high schools, four in the district. Yeah. So thank you for that. As for the, sorry, the question for the survey, forgive me, this is not, it may sound negative, it's not meant to be, but I'm interested to know if the people who took part in it were self-selecting, because it does impact the reliability and statistical impartiality of the survey if they were. So on what basis did the participants actually, were they randomly chosen or did they choose themselves?
This is for the senior survey?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So through the chair, the participants were, they chose themselves, but we did approach a range of sectors to ensure that we had a cross section of participants. And I would just point out that this survey is it is only representative of those people who participated in the survey. We're not saying in any way that this is representative of the community. This is one piece of information that we put together with all of the other data that we collect to inform our decisions going forward.
No, I accept that, and I found it quite helpful from that point of view. Even if the demographics or the gender representations were perhaps slightly skewed, it was interesting to see a decline in the appetite for public transport, for the sake of argument, from 38% of respondents to 19%, which was actually lower than the number of people who identified cost and availability of healthcare as a major issue. So there were some really significant and useful pieces of information in there. But it is noteworthy that they did select themselves, I think.
Thank you. And just on the film competition, just acknowledge Councillor Ryan stepping in and helping to judge that. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's always really interesting watching young people's take on particular social issues. And I'm sorry to miss it, but thank you very much for helping out. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through the chair, just on the co-design workshops under the mental health and addictions. Well done for organising that process. I attended one of the workshops and I thought it was really thorough. It was well organised and it had a good range of different social service representatives that were there, including health. So yeah, I just wanted to feed in. Well done for that. Also, a question around welcoming communities on page 36, just a query around whether they're going to be undertaking some work with employers to help support new migrants into the community. Just wanted to feedback about MFAT and immigration and Ministry for Pacific people visiting our community last week, and we had one of our local employers attend, and about a third of his workforce are Pacific migrants that are helping to keep the business going. So it'll be helpful if there's some intervention or support there from that team.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor Halalele, that is the intention, that Anna will be linking in with all of the people that you talked about in terms of employers, particularly at the moment. We have just consolidated our local settlement network and augmented that to ensure that that has representation that will support the welcoming communities role in terms of an advisory group to provide her with that support going forward and the links to the people in the community she needs to be talking with.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Helen, with regard again to the senior survey, were you surprised at the pretty high levels of mental well-being and satisfaction with circumstances, and also the relatively low levels of concern about COVID in that older demographic? Because I was actually heartened in both instances. But what was how did you interpret those?
Through the chair, yes, I would agree. I was a bit surprised as well, because from other other sectors, we're getting a different story. So I would suggest that's just indicative of the people who completed the survey. What we are hearing is that there are increasing numbers of people who are self-isolating as a result of COVID. So they're not wanting to go out, they're not wanting to engage the same. And that's coming through a range of agencies that are working in this field. So yes, I agree, it was surprising.
Thank you. Any other questions on community development?
Just a couple of comments, just around contribution to workforce development activities. We had the Generator organisation in town probably about a month ago. So thank you for distributing the information about it. We had a really good attendance. Mayor Gary Kitcher and I attended that and supported it, and they are processing some of the funding applications for some of the people that attended. And also thank you to the regulatory team for connecting us with the food control safety contractor that we use, because now they're going to be using that person nationwide to help make things a lot easier for people wanting to set up their own food business. So I think there's really good opportunities around working collaboratively with different sectors. So thank you for getting that that social media section out. And also thank you to the new housing enabling officer as well for attending our Kainga Ora housing workshop that was attended last Thursday night that the community had organised. There was about 25 participants that are quite keen to learn and understand how they can get into their own home. So that contributes to the housing strategy and those objectives there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you very much, Helen and Yvonne. Appreciate your attendance here. Now move on to health and safety updates. And we've got Bill Nelson in the chamber, so welcome, Bill. Councillors, any gnarly questions for Bill? Councillor Hopkins.
Oh, not a gnarly question, but the total number of incidents you report on page 51 of our agenda has gone down quite dramatically, and I guess you would feel satisfied with that. So that's maybe a comment on that. And also just on the next page, under the pool clients, the very last list of incidents says medical/self. And I just wondered what self meant. I mean, is that sort of people injured, deliberately hurting them? Sorry, it's a bit perplexing.
Through the chair, I am a little concerned about the low number of incidents for the year, because I do know that there have been some that haven't been reported. It's still very much an education issue with staff to report them. If I hear of them late, I ask them to put them in so they can get proper trends. In terms of medical and self, that is not self-harm in the sense of cutting, etc., but it's something that's happened to themselves outside of the facility they're in.
Councillor Bishop.
So, Bill, you're not taking credit for the low numbers because you just said that you felt there was underreporting. Is the underreporting because people are using a little bit of common sense, and when they get a paper cut, they're not coming to you?
Through the chair, a little facetious, but I said when I started this position, I wasn't interested in paper cuts. So that message has already gone out. The point I want to make for the governance team here is that it's a team deal, and the team have been working across the board, taking up training opportunities, and in fact doing those things that they need to lessen the number of incidents. I've been very pleased with the team efforts.
Okay, anything else? No. Thank you very much, Bill. Let you get away and count some more paper cuts.
Be safe going down those.
Okay. Right, moving on to economic development updates, and welcome Mel and Sonia. So, any questions Councillor Hopkins, he says with surprise.
Well, I'm sorry, I just waited to see if anyone else had raised.
Yes, you
it.
did.
Yeah.
Well done.
Look, a couple on page 55. We've got this new placemaking lead, Cindy Christensen, funded from Better Off funding from the government, for the record. Question one, when are we going to meet her, and how do you imagine elected members engaging with the placemaking lead? And the other question on the same page, this Inspire Waitaki event that's happening on the 22nd of June in the Business Hive for startups, mentors, supporters and investors. Can councillors attend that, or would you be concerned if we turned up as well as other people?
I'll answer that one first, Councillor Hopkins. There are 76 people have now registered for the event, so it is full, and it's full with startups and mentors and investors, which is fabulous. So it is. There will be a full debrief, and we're doing an evaluation post the event, and then we'll be deciding what the next phase is. But we're really excited because we've had a tremendous response from the community. In terms of Cindy, she will be invited to the next morning tea, I believe. So there's an opportunity to meet everybody. She has been focusing on meeting internal staff and stakeholders around the district. I know she was up in Omarama Tumatata on Friday and met with Brent. We're teeing up a conversation with Jeremy, and we're working around all the councillors. So yes, I would love for you to meet her, because she's got a phenomenal amount of expertise and experience, and keen to ensure that she's engaged with everybody, including the community members. So that is on the radar. We're working through a long list of people to talk to.
Further to that, I got to meet Cindy last week and talked a bit about some of the work that's being proposed for her to do, and certainly gave her my view that when it comes to things like CBD developments and so forth, that the relevant councillors should be part of any working group, along with community members, basically provide input along the way. We've all know our places pretty well, and the opportunity to work on some of this opportunity that we've got now with having Cindy on board is going to be really appreciated. So that's that. And yeah, if we all get a chance to meet her sooner rather than later, that'd be great. Councillor Thompson.
No, I'm just smiling because we were probably to meet Cindy a couple of days after she arrived in my email. So
yeah. Yeah. So all I could think of was that maybe she had to travel through there to arrive in Oamaru, perhaps. Anyway, no, it was really good, and thanks, Mel, for getting her around the traps so much so quickly already. Obviously, there's a lot more traps to get around. Councillor Hopkins.
A couple of other questions. Later on, you talk about evolving the geopark offer and how we've got funding of 25,000 from, I think, the Tourism Innovation Fund, but there's also a reference to us making equal contributions from the Trust, Tourism Waitaki and Council. So what's that going to cost us? On the next page is a reference to the $26,000 from the government's regional events fund for the Steampunk Festival. Did we get that money, or are we in any way accountable for it? And finally, on the next page under place, there's a reference to a winter hospitality activation pilot. Can you tell us what that's all about, please?
I certainly can. So in terms of the cost for the TIF application, there's 25,000 given to us from the government. We have to match that funding, and we've agreed to split it. We've put 10,000 in each across Council, Tourism Waitaki and Runaka to pay for that. So that's how it went into the application. So it's the same way that they do with the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. Innovation for the Innovation Fund. For Steampunk, that money came from the government, and so that's enabled them to step up and get some of those great assets that they've now got for future events. So nothing from the council for that. That was directly from the government regional event fund. And the heritage celebrations, well, it's not paid to us, it's paid to Tourism Waitaki, and then they've allocated it out through a process to businesses or event organisers. And in terms of the place one, so what we're keen to do with Place is, as well as coming up with an overarching plan for how we improve our CBDs and add vibrancy, Cindy's very keen to actually get some activation programs underway to test, to get some learnings. One of the concepts that she's exploring at the moment, and it's a question of whether we can do it in the very limited time we've got, is a winter hospitality program. So working with businesses to say, how do we drive local people into your outlets over the winter period? And there's a concept being floated around a soup sort of activation, sourcing local vegetables and getting local cafes to engage with that and promoting that to residents. But it's still in the very early stages, so it's being scoped for beginning of next fiscal, but keen to see if we can just get some learnings, get some activity that's going to help through a really dead time of year for our businesses.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Percival and then Councillor Ryan and then the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, Melanie, I see Minister Hanari's promising or looking at topping up the destination management plan funding. So how, it must be difficult to keep up with all these different sources of funding that are available. And I know they've dried up considerably in the last few months, but with an election coming, there's bound to be some carrots thrown out there. How do you propose to keep on top of what's happening?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, Councillor Percival. On that specific one, I'm actually up in Wellington over from Sunday through till Tuesday, Wednesday at Taonga Mai Destination Management Workshop. It's with all the RTOs. And Minister Hinari will be there. One of the topics for discussion is indeed how are we funding destination management plans, because every RTO has invested thousands of dollars to develop a plan and nobody has funding. And there's actually been analysis done of how much funding each of the RTOs has got to invest in tourism, and it's not a lot. So it is a major, issue, and it will be a political hot potato, and I think there may well be opportunities that we can leverage. And the Geopark can help us with that as well, because we've got the status as New Zealand's first UNESCO Global Geopark. So hopefully, if we're smart, we can tap into some of those funding. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. Just on page 58, going on to ED implementation, there's mention about a workshop with primary sector key stakeholders as a focus for the next 3 months in the land and water sector. During the annual plan and ED consultation, we had some concerns raised about the rural reference group and a lack of engagement or their concerns there. What work, if any, is being done to sort of re-engage or get that relationship back up and running?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. As we all know, the primary sector is so critical and one that we need to get right. We've had an initial conversation, primarily initially with members from NOSLAM, who are really progressive, forward thinkers and keen to make a difference. From that came a couple of opportunities, as I've outlined in the paper there. What we're now doing, though, is part of the land use optimization strategy is saying, well, what's already happening out there? And we've already been doing some desktop analysis and looking at what our neighbouring districts are doing, what studies they've already got underway. And then we want to have a workshop with that core group and other farmers. We had another farmer reach out to us through planning yesterday saying, I want to look at how I repurpose my land. Who can I talk to in ED? So already the good news, I think, is that the word is getting out there that we're keen to support farmers and landowners to look at how they repurpose and reuse their land. So that will be a key part. So the workshop that we're looking to hold in Q1 is designed to, we're working it through, but potentially it'll be a broader presentation around, hey, this is some of the learnings in our area and about our land. And then how do we work together to actually develop some projects that could potentially lead us to a feasibility study by the end of the year is what we're looking at, which is all part of the ED strategy.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Halaleli and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a question about the Business Innovation and Growth that Inspire Waitaki event. Do you think there's going to be an ongoing event that will be happening? I'm very keen for us to have some more visibility at a national level for that to attract central government funding that I know is available from MSD. If they attend these events, then they can see it and feel the investment that they could provide. And then just a question around the people, skill build and career development. Early discussions underway with Otago Regional Skills Leadership Group. I know last time we spoke with Mr. Kilsby that he was talking with Auckland Unlimited.
Yes.
Are you able to provide a wee update too for that, please?
Yep. Yes, so just to the second one, Councillor Hanalei, there was a follow-up meeting with Stronger Waitaki and Andy and Rebecca from our team on Friday and the team from Auckland Unlimited to talk about how do we move forward. They have funding and they are really keen to support us, and they understand that we want to roll it out locally with our own local resources. So that I believe there's going to be a follow-up action put in place to do that. I wasn't actually at the meeting on Friday, I wasn't working on Friday, but that the good news is that everybody is aligned that is a big opportunity, and it's an opportunity for Māori and Pacifica specifically, because it will lead to my-credentials and other skill build opportunities. The entrepreneurship, yes. So in the ED strategy, part of the business innovation and growth is looking at an entrepreneurship system. This initiative is our kickstarting that concept. Out of it, we will want to understand what value people get from it, and then where might it go thereafter. It could lead to an ongoing mentoring program. It could lead to an incubator system. It could lead to other networking opportunities, collaboration spaces that we'll be working through. We have got some good representation from MPI or sending people from outside of the district. So we're starting to tap into other agencies there. But I think we're taking this as a first start, and then we'll evolve from there. We'll be able to start scoping it out with the limited resources we've got. And I think that's the challenge at the minute, because we only have 3 people and we only have bandwidth to do so much. If you remember in the ED strategy, we had a person for business and a person for people, whereas at the moment we've got one person spreading herself across 2 or 3 programs of work. So it's quite an ask.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine's not a question, just a comment. I'd like to congratulate Mel and her department. It's heartening when we see us talking about career pathways and developing our youth and taking a holistic approach to economic development, rather than maybe a perception that it's just about helping business.
Councillor Holding.
Thanks, Mel. Just around place and the vacant space, I just would like us to exercise maybe a bit of caution to try and just have a real local focus on that, rather than trying to maybe bring outsiders for a week for competing for dumps or for people that might have fixed overheads or costs, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, yes, Cindy's already done some good analysis looking at the number of vacancies we've got, even in Oamaru CBD. I mean, there's 22 vacant shops. We're going to have to think very smartly about what it is we want to do in those spaces, because we can't expect to suddenly have another 20 retailers coming in, because the landscape has changed. So that's going to be a really interesting project to work collaboratively with the community and with key stakeholders to go, well, what might we do? And might there be some community opportunities there? That's certainly some of Cindy's learnings from elsewhere in the country.
Just a quick comment from me, just on page 58. The placemaking side of things, and particularly the better off funding, it's noting there that there's Palmerston is the Wahimo Community Board has prioritised projects, and as much as we want to work on the basis of subsidiarity, that's probably a decision that needs to be made by council ultimately. So just make note of that. And at the same time, Otamatata, I think, has got their hand up to utilise their funds in maybe a slightly or a partially different way to what was proposed. So I think as we get into these things, it's we want to make sure the locals have got the say, but it just need to be endorsed by council, because I think in this area there's that overarching view that we need to take about how the district moves ahead as a whole, and then get into the locals having some real solid input to that. So Some really good possibilities around what can happen. It's really exciting that we've got the funding, and really look forward to getting onto it with Cindy working in that space as well.
Yeah, and we are proposing to have a workshop with the Ahuriri board before the next meeting in July, just to make sure we're all aligned on what we're trying to do. Because while we've got money, it's not a huge amount of money at all, particularly when you take the salary out of it. So it's being really smart about the monies that we've got remaining and making sure they actually have an impact. And the community have got ideas, and that's great. So we just want to make sure we've thought through all the angles and understood what the implications are.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else on the ED? Okay, we'll move to comms.
Oh, sorry, I did have one question, Gary, if I through you on the economic, on the report, you know, the sort of the
statistics.
Yeah, yes. On page 61, I think it must be a mistake here because there's a reference to consumer spending to April 2023. And it says that electronic card consumer spending as measured by Market View was stable versus April and ahead of April 2021. Encouragingly, the number of transactions increased by 6.1% to $27.4 million. But surely if it's a number of transactions, it shouldn't be a dollar figure. It should be just a number.
Oh, sorry, the number of transactions, increased by 6.1% to, and yes, so the actual spend was 27.4 million. Yeah, but so transactions increased by 6%, and that meant we spent, looking at the spend from those transactions, was 27.4 million. So
it does. What it doesn't do is tie together the increase in the number of transactions. Sorry, can I just?
Right. Yes.
It doesn't tie together that increase in transactions to actually, did everyone spend the same amount and we end up with more, or did they spend less? Or so mixing the two.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't give any clarity on that. If it's up 6.1% and we've increased the average spend, that's fantastic. Okay, moving on to the comms update. Councillor Percival. No, Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, sorry, just one question. You've got a Teams update. We have been onboarding 2 new team members who are hired to fill vacant roles and are currently recruiting to fill 1 vacant position. What's the total number of people in the comms team now, please?
So there's 3 of us. So we've got a website administrator and a digital and marketing person, and me, who's a comms team lead. So we'll be getting 1 extra to replace Anna, who was in the communication specialist role.
So is that a full-time in-house?
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Previously, the website administrator was working in the IT department with it.
It's always been under comms, but we're quite unusual to have the website administrator as part of the communications team. A lot of councils have them as part of the information services team.
Yeah, like I think this was before we had a comms.
Oh yeah, way back. Yeah, before we.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just trying to determine, has it been an extra person that's come on board in the last few years, or is it something that was actually there because we were running a website since before that time?
Yeah.
Any further questions on comms? Comms are silent. Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. And now we move to Heritage Environment and Regulatory Group update, the best till last, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Kitcher. It was always a bit of a gamble going last as to whether I run out of time before you get to me or whether there's plenty of time. And it looks as though there's plenty of time. So maybe I'll get a roasting. Couple of things I just want to point out that in the report, you'll notice that there was the building consent accreditation activity. And we had to prepare some data for that, and it's actually some quite significant data that the last consent that went over 20 days, which is a statutory timeframe, was 2 years ago. And in that time, the building team have processed 1,250 consents in an average of 8 working days, with a total value to the district of 196.44 million. So that's quite a significant contribution to the economic activity in the district there. Otherwise, happy to take questions on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cook. And no, David Campbell was online. Councillor Cowles.
Thanks, Mayor Kuchar.
I just noticed, Mr. Cook, that building consents, a lot of things have gone back up between April and May. Are we seeing an overall trend and more demand on these services at the moment? I know that there was a bit of a concern that perhaps recession was starting to hit and that there was going to be less building and those sorts of things going on, but it seems like we're getting an increase again. Is that an overall trend?
Thank you, through the chair. There's we're hoping so, but it is a little bit early to tell because it may be distorted by the fact that there was a change to the building code and the insulation requirements, and consents submitted by a particular date had to be assessed under the old code, and consents the day after had to be assessed under the new code, and there was a little bit of a rush to get them in under the old code. Because it significantly adds cost to building under the new regulation.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Roger, I'm not sure if it's for you or for David. Thank you very much for the information about the building consents, by the way. It's very valuable for us in the community to know. Just looking at the information about resource consents at the bottom of that page of reports, the percentage of the performance level is significantly lower, 67% issued within the statutory timeframe. Now, I know you say that there's only, most of the others were only a few days over and so on. But I mean, is there any explanation for why it's so much lower than everything else? And is there any cause for concern in respect to that, please?
I think that would be ideal for David to answer.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Yeah, there was a blip in the figures for April, so they were down quite a bit, and we just need to reconcile some of the notifieds that were in the system. May did pick up quite a bit, so it, on average for those 2 months, it did bring it down quite low, but May was a good pickup, was well over 80% there. So we're just working through the figures for April to see where those problems lie for that particular month.
So supplementary through you, Mr. Chair, what you're saying is that there were certain issues in April that resulted in what, from your point of view, might have been a less than satisfactory or less than acceptable performance. It's picked up since. What do you think the problems were, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, as I said, there's some notified consents in the system, and they are on a different time frame. But until you adjust them in the system, they show as being over time. So we just need to rectify those ones in particular.
Right. So it may not be, in other words, it's a notification system matter rather than a matter of not meeting the statutory timeframes, perhaps.
Yes, and certainly in May it did pick up significantly back to what we normally expected. So it's just that April period had a bit of a blip. So we're looking back at those numbers.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a question to either of the gentlemen. That I, along with my fellow rural councillors, have been approached in a number of instances where ratepayers have sought to get consent for activities and been told that by staff that this may not be able to occur because of the proposed district plan regulations coming in. I would have thought that currently we'd be dealing with what's on the books now, because there's a lot of work to go from a proposed to an implemented district plan.
Yep, happy to answer that one, Councillor Thompson through the Mayor.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. One is giving people a heads up of what might be coming, particularly around subdivisions. So there has been quite a steady flow of rural subdivisions coming through to take advantage of the current 4 hectare minimum. And yeah, as you mentioned the other day, Councillor Thompson, I'll just be checking with that staff member about the advice on what can happen now versus what can't. So just being clear that you're right, it's not a legal document at the moment. It's just giving people a heads up of what's possibly going to change. So we'll get that message back through to the team.
Okay, anyone else? Anything else on heritage environment and regulatory overall? Nope, that looks just like it's no roasting today, Mr. Cox. So that's always a win.
Just a light saute.
We'll just like to comment on the accreditation result. There was a total of 8 GNCs, and the national average is currently running at about 10. And in the last 30 audits, IONS have issued 21 serious. So again, good performance by the building team, and some of those GNCs are really quite minor things now. So very pleased with that.
No, thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, overall, how good are the building consent applications when they come in? Are they most of them quite complete, or are there still discrepancies that shouldn't be happening, do you believe?
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. It very much depends on the applicant and the designer. If the applicant is certain in their mind what they want to achieve, and the designer is fully across the building code, then the number of RFIs are very minimal. If the applicant isn't sure and the designer or architect is less careful, then RFIs tend to increase. But I think it would be fair to say that the quality of applications over the period that I've been connected with the building industry in Waitaki has improved.
Yeah, that's good. Probably the other question around building consents is the ability for owners, property owners, those who are getting the work done, to access details on the consent process and where things are at as far as consent going through council. Not that there's probably a major issue with contractors perhaps, or builders, etc., blaming council for delays when actually we're waiting on them. But are there more owners taking the opportunity to track their applications through the process?
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. There's certainly an increase again over the time since we implemented the electronic processing. There's a lot of scope for owners to do more if they're interested. A number of owners regard the fact that they pay the builder, they pay the architect, they want them to take care of it. And then there's some owners that pay particular interest and manage it quite closely. So it's not for everybody, but the facility is certainly there if people want to take it up.
Right, that's good. And I think something that we just need to keep promoting whenever possible, so that people can easily go online and see where things are at themselves. Anyway, with that, we'll draw this activity update to a close. So thank you very much to all those who may have been watching online, and thank you to all the staff put together the reports and who've been responding to queries during the day, the morning. So thank you very much.